So let's dive in and talk about protein, all things protein. I'm going to give you a comprehensive overview, but also not too many details. Really, I'm going to answer a few main questions. Number one, why is protein so important for our bodies? Why is it important for our goals, whether it's increasing energy, gaining muscle, losing body fat? How much protein do we need? Because that's you probably maybe even landed here on this episode because you've researched that already and found it to be so controversial. And then how do we get in the amount of protein that we need? And then what types of protein supplements may be the best for you? So first, let's talk about the fact that protein is the fundamental building block for our bodies. So our cells, our tissues, they need amino acids, which is what protein is when it's broken down. And there's a lot of confusion sometimes about that at the very cellular level, what things are. Amino acids are the building blocks of our cells. We know that from science class back in 7th grade. But that's really what protein is. So we take in chicken or vegan sources, or we take in powders. All of this really is protein broken down is amino acids. And so again, we need that for almost all of our systems in our body. And then we go now to how it can affect and help us in our goals. First, if we talk about muscle gain, well, let's say you have a house and you're trying to put another story on top of your house. This is basically what you're trying to do with your muscles, right? You have muscles currently. You're trying to actually tear them down a little bit, but then you need to rebuild. And to do that, you need more material. And the material that you need is amino acids. So that's the reason why you need more protein to build your extra muscle. Now, in doing so, what's interesting about protein, when we talk about losing body fat, is the fact that it has what's called a thermic effect. Taking in protein will actually help increase your body's thermogenesis, which is burning calories. And because a lot of these calories are going to be burned by being digested or at rest, but also while you're doing your physical activities of working out or walking, a lot of these calories tend to be fat, and that's where taking in, and also too, because when you take in protein, it can help with being full, because it's really helps with balancing blood sugar levels. That's why it's absolutely crucial to be part of any sort of fat loss routine or muscle building routine. Now, there's also the extra benefit that a little deeper on this. We talk about energy and fatigue, fighting fatigue, and providing the brain the amino acids that it needs, and also being able to recover from workouts. So as I just mentioned, we're needing these amino acids for recovery. And I have clients that will start working together, and they'll sit down and we'll analyze their protein intake. And we'll say, they're noticing, maybe they're just noticing not enough energy levels, or their results aren't where they want to be. That's one of the first things I analyze. And so going back to that next question, well, how much should I be taking in? And this is where, yes, there are some standards out there, but again, if you've done the research, you've seen where it's all over the board. You can go all the way from people saying, oh, people are taking way too much protein, you don't need that. And then, you have on the other side of the board where you need very excessive amounts. And I just, again, you'll notice about me, I'm always trying to get people to think. So instructors, nutritionists, and then also just clients, think about you, who you are, what are you trying to accomplish? So I'm going to use myself as an example. And to my point, do not do what I'm doing because I'm just saying that I'm doing this, right? You have to analyze for yourself. I'm taking in right now, my current protocol is anywhere from 262 to 308 grams of protein per day. And that's going to shock a lot of people. That is a whole lot of protein. But here's what I'm doing. Because of the health problems that I've been dealing with my digestion and some other issues, I am doing what's called protein-sparing modified fasting, which means most of my calories, almost all of my calories are coming from protein. Some fats, no carbs. Therefore, when you really look at it in retrospect, that's really not that many calories I'm taking in. And so that amount of protein really isn't too much on my system for my goals and what I'm trying to accomplish. Now, if you compare me to maybe a 60-year-old woman who's dealing with trying to get her energy levels up, does she need to consume 300 grams of protein per day? Probably not. But that's where we just go back and we say, well, okay, well, what's our range here? So what I tell people and what I've worked with throughout the many years, again, using just in real time. That's the beautiful thing about the vantage point that I have is being a trainer nutritionist and getting to work with, some people who are very willing to give things a try and experiment, is you get to see what really, really works. And so, yes, we have tons of data on the subject. We have many studies there. And so what I say is, hey, let's try the standard of 0.8 grams to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. I add to that if someone's trying to gain muscle. So let's say they're 160 pounds, trying to get to 180, then we look at, let's try to get that 180 grams of protein. So we're actually trying to shoot for where the goal is. And sometimes for women, it can work the same way. But I have found, again, this phenomenal, seeing this in real time where people increase their protein. And sometimes it's one person maybe not 1, but 1.2 grams. And we increase that a little bit, and then their body starts to change. So this is what I'm really telling to, again, you fitness professionals out there with your clients. Try to start with a basis, and you've got to work with that and see where that does. If you try to go up and see if does that help improve, if they're saying, no, it's just weighing me down, it's just too much protein, and it's not affecting your results, maybe you pull it back and try to make some other adjustments. That's really what you need to do. So we can kind of use that. You have to look at your physical activity. If you're out there, you're working out, you're using resistance training, you're needing the amino acids to recover from your workouts, then all of a sudden it makes sense to maybe have that amount of protein in your diet every day. But I will say, in my experience, using science, but also just real-time data from being doing this for over 20 years, it's amazing to see how many times I've just increased protein in someone's nutritional protocol, and the results start to come. So then people, oftentimes the question comes is like, well, as we talked about in the introduction, but also I get is, how in the world am I going to get that much protein in? Because we look at it, I sit down with people and I say, well, I had a chicken breast, on my salad, I had a little this bar, and then maybe I had this, and the amount of protein is really, really low. And when I tell them that, well, you're going to need to get in like 180, 200 grams of protein a day for this person I'm thinking of, they're like, well, that's impossible. So then we look at alternatives and we look at supplements. And this is where supplements really come in. Protein powder specifically can be an amazing tool. There is some out there that want to be purist. It was an interesting conversation I had just not recently with a gentleman who's saying, I don't use powders. I don't subscribe to that. And I asked him, well, how are you coming with your goals? Well, yeah, I'm still working on it. And well, are you able to get all the protein you're in? Well, not really. So therefore, that's where the shakes come in, protein powders as tools. And I say, actually, you need to be more correct. You can use protein powders in other ways. You can use them to cook with, right? You can use them in protein pancakes. These are other things a lot of people times people don't think about and really help up your protein intake. And so along with this, and if you're here with me now, I'm going to share one of my best techniques. A lot of my clients, they're high performers. They are people who run large companies, CEOs. They've got back-to-back meetings, a lot being asked of them every hour, whether you're an accountant for a high-end firm or attorneys or whatnot, in long time court battles, whatever it is. So I talk about my 3 shaker protocol. And what this is that to get your protein in, because it is so important for your goals and to move the needle, I say, hey, get 3 shakers, put them in the office. When you get to work, get there 2-3 minutes early. It's all you got to do, just 3 minutes earlier. Take milk or water. I mean, I like to use, like almond milk or a coconut milk. Put the protein in there, shake them up, and have them there. And then when you're running from meeting to meeting, boom, you can go grab that out of the fridge and drink it while you're having the meeting. But we did this because with one client, I'm thinking of in specific, where we were training for a little bit of time, and he kept coming back to he's just not getting his protein in. So I said, hey, you've got to try this protocol. You put this into practice because it literally made all the difference. And I want to stress that again. It literally made all the difference in his results. His training was good. The rest of his diet was good. But he noticed more energy, and also the results started to come of building the muscle that he wanted and losing the body fat that he wanted. And it was because he was getting those shakes in, the amount of protein he needed for his body, in that day. So that's really how important and a game changer it can be, and why these tools are so important. Now, one question I get about protein a lot is, what about vegan protein? What about, I'm a vegetarian. Can I, how do I get enough protein in? Now, first and foremost, I have to answer again, you have to answer that for yourself. Is if you're going to try to go vegan, does that work for you? Do you feel better? I throughout my career, I've tried a couple different times. Recently, I really got amped up on it. And I say recently, in the last couple of years. And I really went all in. And I started using, I tried Lifetime's vegan protein. It's definitely by far one of the best tasting proteins out there, vegan-wise. And so it's got a great blend. So I started using it. And my stomach experienced a lot of inflammation. It was swollen. I did not feel well. And so this is not their protein, because many others are using it, but it showed it's not for me because of what I'm experiencing, my health issues that I've been battling. So that's where I realized that even though I may want to subscribe to a vegan, I really can't. It's my body's not handling it now at this point, or may not be for me, for the future. So you can't really just stop and say it's better to be vegan or better to use whey. You have to know what's good for you. On the other side, very interesting, one of my latest so-called studies or experiments we did, I have a vegetarian client. He's one of my higher performers. Work with him 3 days a week, and we were trying to get enough protein in his diet. Was having a hard time. We agreed that he would be open to trying whey protein. And now, I'm not saying that you have to do this. For those of you who are really wanting to stay for whatever reason, hardcore or strict on your vegan or vegetarian approach, but this is just what happened, and it was very interesting. And this is to my point that by trying things and by being open to certain things and not being dogmatic about what's better. So he tried whey protein. So we've been training for 6-7 months, and then when he started using whey protein, could not believe all of a sudden within a 2-week, 3-week period the changes in his body that was happening. Shoulders were starting to be almost carved out. The body fat starts going down. Recovery from the workouts. All these things starts happening. And so this is where I want to educate you, since again, I want to give you a little extra information if you're listening this far. And understanding perhaps what's happening there is that vegan or vegetarian sources are going to be slower digesting proteins. And sometimes that is just harder. It's because when you take a little bit in, you're going to feel really full. It's hard to get that much in. When you take in something like whey, which is faster digesting, that is actually going to be able to get more in, but also just may have a different effect. May have that thermic effect we're talking about in some people. Like, this is what's happening in real time, right? I see this with my client, and it was just phenomenal. It's been phenomenal to see the changes that have happened. So there's just an idea to throw out there for those of you who are open to it. But getting back to my point is, I've also seen people who are vegetarian and vegan, and they take in their vegan proteins and they really get their protein where it needs to be, and their results are phenomenal as well. So this is where we have to go back to using these supplements as tools if we need to. If you can get all of your protein from whole food, go for it. That's great. Very few people can do that nowadays, especially, again, the people that I train, and most people that are probably going to be listening or watching this, they're going to not be able to sit down. I know I can't. I'm back-to-back clients. It's not possible for me to sit down and plan a meal every couple of hours or every few hours and take that time. I'd love to, but that's where the shakes come in, my 3-shaker protocol. So just to wrap this up, I want to talk about, I mentioned a couple of powders and how I get the extra protein in, because that's really using as shakes. I do absolutely recommend Lifetime's products, and I really want to make this disclaimer. I am not going to recommend their products just because I happen to work with the company. When I first arrived at Lifetime and started working with the company, I scrutinized their products because I've always been very picky about supplements. And the more research I did, the more surprised I was at all the work they've done to clean the supplements, to test them. But it really came down to the fact that I was struggling at the time to find a whey protein I wasn't sensitive to. And knowing that I also couldn't take in vegan, I was like, what am I going to do here? How am I going to get my protein in? I tried their whey isolate, And for those of you who don't know what an isolate protein is they filter out the lactose. So for a lot of you who are listening and who are like really want to get your protein in, but are struggling with the dairy aspect, it's amazing because I am sensitive. I'm not allergic, not totally intolerant, but I am definitely sensitive to dairy, to lactose. And so when I take in this isolate, I can drink this protein all day. It's the only protein that I can take in that does not bother me. I mean, 2 or 3 shakes a day for extended periods of time. I put in coconut milk or almond milk. It's amazing. It's the other thing about it, this protein, it's the best tasting protein. I shock so many people when I first have them taste it. But what else is in here? It's like nothing. It's vanilla protein. I'm talking about the vanilla. The chocolate is good as well, in my opinion. But the vanilla is incredible. And that's so important when you're trying to be very careful about what you're taking in, not adding a bunch of other fruits or other things to it if that's your goal at that time. And so just being able to, and also simplification, right? If you're traveling, like we talked about, if you just have a little, protein. I found another client, by the way, who needed to have his protein in his car. So for those of you who are driving, maybe you're going to client meetings or just that's where you need to have your protein shake. Just the idea of being able to have powder and water. I mean, it's really tastes that good that you can get away with it. Where other protein powders, it's not possible. So let's go back and kind of review. What we've learned is protein is absolutely necessary for our bodies. And it really becomes the game changer. Sometimes it's the make it or break it between getting the results you want, whether that's getting more energy, gaining muscle, or losing body fat. We've talked about now how much to get. We use the old gold standard of 0.8 to 1 grams. Start there. That may not be, you may need less, you may need a little bit more. And by dialing it in, you'll find out what you need. And then we talked about how to get that protein throughout the day. I shared my protocol with you. And using protein powder is an excellent way to do that. And then I share with you the ones I recommend. And so I'll leave my link down below to these powders, the couple of the protein powders I've recommended. And I'm also going to do more videos, more about amino acids specifically. But I'm just going to drop this in the end. I appreciate if there are those of you who've listened this far. We talk about amino acids at the very beginning. That's what protein is. Well, there's essential amino acids. And so I'll talk more about this. It's a whole different topic. But basically, you think about it as concentrated protein powder. I'm just going to use that term, concentrated protein powder. There's a little bit more. It's an oversimplification of it. But it's protein broken down a couple different times. Essential amino acids. I'll leave a link down below to that as well. That's really excellent if you want to take in extra aminos throughout the day for all the reasons we talked about. I'm happy to answer any more questions about this topic. Please, you can message me, leave a comment, and be happy to answer. So, but it was great, and I hope you found it was useful, and look forward to providing you more information in the future. Get your protein in. Okay, take care.